Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this brief ag forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, we're watching here at first satellite animation here over the tropics, and this right here is now Tropical Depression Fred. It had been a tropical storm, but disruption going over the mountains combined with some higher wind shears really disrupted the flow of Fred. And Fred still needs to go here over the top of Cuba before maybe getting into some more favorable environment just to the west of Florida. Now, there's going to be some trouble here trying to understand what's going to happen with Fred given a pair of both an upper level high and an upper level low that could increase shear, causing Fred some issue on redeveloping and strengthening. But we'll take a look at the latest data here in a few moments on what Fred's potential strength is going to be. Before I do that, though, I just want to point out a couple other things. Following Fred, we have a tropical depression that's taking shape here. It's not yet given a number, but the National Hurricane Center is giving this a 60% chance of developing here over the next 2 days and a 70% chance over the next 5 days of becoming a depression as it heads toward the Lesser Antilles through this weekend. And as you saw at the end of the animation, there is still some very healthy convection coming off of the west coast of Africa, indicating we're not slowing this pattern down anytime soon. So from there, let's just go take a look at the latest guidance here from the European model, and we can see that what is left of Fred is expected, if we look at the ensemble average, to move over the next few days over Cuba, right over on Saturday, the Florida Keys, and then eventually here toward the Panhandle. But the latest model updates have slowed Fred down a bit, and we're going to question how much of its moisture is going to be getting into the Appalachian Mountains, which is what the European model really suggests it's going to do. And to be honest, when we look at the latest update here from the National Hurricane Center, they suggest that as well. You notice that they're going to keep Fred as a tropical depression here through Friday and then strengthen it again to tropical storm strength. And given some of the steering current winds coming out of this direction on Saturday into Sunday, it'll be interesting to see if Fred does take a little bit more of a westerly trajectory, which would be important for not only the future track, but time spent over water, which could allow it to strengthen. Going from there, I would like to just show you, I stopped this here all the way out a week from now to show you kind of where the main path of Fred is coming through in the southeast according to the European model. And it did shift it a bit farther to the west in this heavy corridor right in through here. But if we animate this, let's just go back, let's see. The heaviest rains are coming into the Florida Panhandle. This is part of the very productive part of the Cotton Belt here by Monday morning. And then those heavier rains kind of spread. It appears that they're going to kind of come through the Atlanta area and then head up toward the Appalachian Mountains here, where in addition to being kind of pushed against the mountains, we do have a frontal boundary stretching through this area that's going to aid in the lift as well. So I would kind of paint a corridor right in through here where we have our best chance of exceeding 3 inches, and some locations may see much more than that. European ensemble sees that as well. We're looking at the probability or the chance of getting at least 4 inches of rainfall through the next few days here. And we see that, we have a 50 to 80% chance as we move into this area and then turn and come over the Appalachian Mountains. So I'm expecting flooding in that area. And just of note, we have seen drought develop throughout July and early August in the Appalachian Mountains, despite some big storms there as of late. And so this could be a major drought busting event in parts of Virginia and West Virginia. Something just to watch carefully. Now, over the last 30 days, that's that drier pocket into there. Okay. Now, this only goes through the morning of the 11th. This map is always a day old, made by the AHPS. In this corridor in through here, I would just define it as there have been a lot of scattered storms locally producing some heavy rain, but you also see there's a lot of places that have missed out on this rainfall. And we're going to talk about some of the recent heavy rains that have come right through this section of the Corn Belt in a few moments. But before I do, something to take note of here. Look at how strong the Southwestern Monsoon has been. Some places here 200 to over 350% of normal on rainfall. That's really helped erode away some of the severe to exceptional drought in the Southwest. From there, let's take a look at our current soil moisture. We're going to go down to 40 centimeters. That's 16 inches. And we can see those drier pockets, despite some of the big storms that have been in this area, that still exist in parts of Virginia and West Virginia. There's drier pockets that extend into Ohio and Indiana, Kentucky, and even right down here to where kind of the Ohio and the Mississippi come together. But outside of that, one of our big question marks is going to be, are we going to return enough moisture in this area to one, sustain the crop and maybe start to undo some of this long-standing drought issues we've had with inadequate subsurface soil moisture there. So why don't we get to that and start answering some of those questions? Because Over the last week, we've really hammered a few different areas with a lot of severe weather. Repeated storms moving over northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, into northern Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan. In fact, we had a lot of tornado reports here earlier in the week on Monday in northern Illinois and some straight line wind damage there as well. Here's those storms I was telling you about in the mid-Atlantic and over the Appalachian Mountains, and some big hailers coming out of parts of Kansas as well. So to see nearly 1,500 reports late in the summer here, at this point in August has really been a major uptick in our severe weather. And just remember, we're down about 25% on normal on tornado reports. We're down nearly half of normal on hail reports this year. And we're down about 15% on severe wind reports. And we'll have to see how that changes as we add all of this in. Heavy rains have been on a stalled frontal boundary right in through here, especially in northern Missouri through central Illinois today. And some places in here easily picking up well in excess of 6 inches. And I know this firsthand because I live very close to this, where we've had a lot of flooding today. Had that been well predicted? Absolutely not. No, the models did not see the storms continuing to fire on that boundary right in through here. So this is certainly an under forecast setup here. But the heavier rains in parts of northern Indiana, Michigan, the open Gulf kind of pushing those storms in like this just repeatedly. And then look at again, we have very, very wet conditions over the last 3 days in Arizona, New Mexico, and southern California as well. Okay, where's it all going? Well, let's just take a quick look at our satellite imagery. So this is the sunset line right there. So we've already got our big storms blown up into the northeast where we were expecting severe weather today. There's isolated storms here, and then storms, watch this, that have really just erupted on the sea breeze right down here in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, and that includes part of Florida as well. Big storms on the sea breeze today, and that sea breeze has really extended pretty far inland. We can also see the very healthy convection. Look at this over New Mexico, western Texas, extending up into parts of Kansas and Colorado. But these storms in through here are the slow movers, really moving and training where they follow one another, producing some very heavy rainfall. And look at the smoke out in the western part of the United States. We got still quite a bit of smoke coverage there. Over this next week, we're going to look at this from 3 different models today. We're going to watch this frontal boundary that's connected to a deeper low of the Hudson Bay slowly move its way toward the south and east. Looking at the WPC, they're bringing in the heaviest rains from Fred here, and then eventually turning it up into the Appalachian Mountains, meaning that the WPC is heavily relying on the European solution at this point. A lot of scattered storms in this part of the Cotton Belt, extending over to Texas. And then this feature right in through here, much of what you've got coming in right in through here is going to be early next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And as that comes through, this could really bring in a lot of rainfall to some very, very dry conditions. And the last thing to point out, the Southwestern Monsoon is still going. And until this rain comes through, much of the Midwest, upper Midwest, and Great Lakes are going to be dry. I'll show you that in more detail in a few moments. So, Storm Prediction Center, we're going to keep an eye late this afternoon, this evening here in parts of the Northeast. But those stronger storms do extend all the way back to Kansas, and you just saw that a few moments ago. I told you that front slow moving. This is all the farther it makes it by tomorrow. And we're going to watch right up here in the high plains for a risk for some severe storms, and we're going to have a hail risk out of these as well. And then by day 3, well, now we're starting to talk about when Fred's coming through, but just scattered storms from Maine all the way through the lower Mississippi River Valley, curling back into the Four Corners states here. That's our setup here for the next few days. Into next week, the most important feature I'm watching, it's kind of obscure to see here, but here's the main flow of the jet stream right now. I'll be watching this trough in the Bering Sea and this in the North Pacific. These two features are going to be working together, at least they are in the forecast models, to be pushed into British Columbia, into the Northwest, and dive into the Central Plains. And as they do so, you can see it here by looking at the high-res Euro 12Z run. Ready? There's feature number 1. There's number 2. And as I play this through Friday, getting into Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, here they are. And going from Monday into Tuesday and Wednesday, we've now got this trough feature in through here. Open Gulf transport, this is going to be a setup that produces a lot of storms here. A lot of scattered storms over the south as well. And that sweeps on through late next week and really increases the storm chances across some of the driest fields here in the northern plains and parts of the southern Canadian prairies, specifically getting over to parts of Manitoba and into Ontario. Now to see all that, let's go take a look at the European 12Z, and we're just going to add up that rainfall so you can see the whole picture. Here's our low, there's our stalled boundary, And as we add it up here, going through Friday, getting into Saturday, that's just the boundary sinking farther and farther to the south and east. So a lot of scattered storms here. Southwestern Monsoon, and here's Fred. All right. Now from there moving forward, Fred, according to the European, gets pulled into parts of Alabama and Georgia, cuts right here very close to Atlanta, and then sets up shop in this area. So as we go through Tuesday into Wednesday, you see that. But remember, by Wednesday, really Tuesday into Wednesday, we start to see this area take advantage of that trough and more storms. Now going all the way out there to next Friday, this will be the area that we're going to watch most carefully to be bringing in those storms. Now, what does the GFS say about all this? I know I didn't really highlight too much what was going on here in the Central Plains and Mid-South, but you see it's wet there too. The GFS looks like this. There's that same frontal boundary, lots of scattered storms, but it brings more storms in through here through the weekend. But Fred, what's going on with Fred? The GFS brings Fred in and just stalls out right here and just kind of just disappears in the model. It's not taking what's left of Fred and bringing it through the Appalachian Mountains like you saw with the European. But it does have that feature, which means both models are keyed in on that same upper level trough sweeping into the northwest and parts of the Canadian prairie. And taking on out there to that same time period, notice how much wetter the GFS is in this area than the European was. So I can put it all together and compare the two. Ready? Let's zoom back out so you can see it. Remember, when you look at this, these colors represent wetter than normal for the GFS. Excuse me, not wetter than normal, wetter than the European. These represent wetter in the European than the GFS. So the European is wetter here, the GFS is wetter there, all right? And look at the difference in Fred, the storms here versus here. But there's relatively good agreement about what's going on in the northern plains. So that's a mess, and the models are not lining up very well together at this particular point. Do they ever line up? Well, surprisingly enough, getting out to day 10, there's a trough feature here in the GFS ensemble with the ridge over the East Coast. That trough is what, according to the GFS, is going to make things quite stormy here, but still quite a bit of wet weather over in parts of the Appalachian Mountains and Mid-Atlantic, but dry along the coast. But the GFS has been dry on the coast forever. European has actually very similar features. Ridge, ridge, and it's doing this with the precip pattern, which is similar except for along the Gulf Coast where the European has consistently been wetter. But the main idea here is that we're going to go into the end of August with a lot of thunderstorm activity, possibly in the midsection of the country, extending into Ontario, and possibly down here in the Mid-South as well. What about temperatures? Well, we got a lot of heat right now ahead of that front, stretching from the Mid-South all the way to the Northeast. Excessive heat warnings that are in parts of the Pacific Northwest, but those aren't going to hang on too long. Take a look at this. As we play out the forecast, the front that's moved through the northern plains today, by the time we get into tomorrow, it has already sagged pretty far to the south. And going into Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, that cooler air is really advancing pretty far to the south. Now we get a quick rebound of temperatures in the northern plains. But remember, that next trough has worked its way in. So if I step you back real quick, all this excessive heat at the end of the week in the northwest, by early next week, is out. And that trough sweeps in, and that is what's going to initiate a lot of the storms in this area we talked about for midweek next week. Day 5 through 10 temperature pattern from the operational European model. And now you see the effect of that ridge, but we don't see excessive heat along a big corridor of the central part of the United States, day 5 through 10. And beyond that, the models are losing a bit of the signal overall, but they're generally calling for warmer than normal conditions as we move our way toward the end of the month of August. Now, where I want to finish up is this. I've been asking myself, is there anything that's going to block up this pattern moving forward? First answer to that is the MJO is out now in phase 1, and it's forecast to sweep around over the next month through phases 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, I said that fast because that means the MJO is moving. The tropics are not locked into one place in particular. And that movement is going to be favorable overall to keeping the whole of the atmosphere on the move. But where we get our best rising motion over the next 15 days is going to be right here in the Atlantic and also here in the Indian Ocean, which means more of these tropical waves coming off of Africa or even something getting kind of going here in the Gulf of Mexico is a strong possibility working our way through the end of the month. That's the tropics. But outside of the tropics, we do not see a lack of momentum between 30 north and 60 north. That's where the polar jet stream exists. That's over the North Atlantic, over the US, it's over Canada and Russia. And if I don't see a drop off of momentum here, what would be the indicator of getting the pattern blocked up? I don't see it. And that's why we've now got a brand new update looking at the month of September. And the model says keep that Gulf moisture open, and they got storms. Now we know it will not be stormy everywhere because just like we saw in August, a lot of this was very scattered, right? We also don't know what will be happening in the month of September coming out of the tropics either, because that's always the wild card. But this has now been, the fourth forecast in a row where I see through much of September above normal precipitation midsection of the country. I'm going to spend my weekend looking for what could make this wrong, and I'll report back to you on Monday, all right? Appreciate your attention. Thanks.